Now we have a home video release that was just released this week from Shout Factory. It is a 1986 slasher comedy, April Fool's Day, which I just happen to have a copy of right here. This is a new collector's edition from Shout Factory, so you get the slipcase and you get the cover and you get what I love personally. So they create new artwork for these discs a lot of the time. And sometimes they're cool and sometimes they're not. And as a fan and collector of certain movies, sometimes you kind of wish you had the original poster art. To me, the poster wasn't always something I could get my hands on, but if I had it as the cover of a video release, in a sense, I had a copy of the poster, and that was cool. What Shout Factory does with their Scream Factory releases, and a lot of what they do, is you get the new artwork on the front, and then you open it up, and you have on the inside the original artwork, so that if you choose to do so, you can take that out and flip that over, and then your disc looks like the original poster, or for me and a lot of people my age who originally saw this movie back in the 80s, the original VHS cover. So, what is April Fool's Day? Well, if you watch the original TV spots and trailers, you'd think it's a wacky comedy where people occasionally stub their toe and scream, but actually April Fool's Day is it's a horror comedy. It's a horror movie. It's a movie about a group of yuppie-type friends or pre-yuppie-type friends in the mid-80s, 1986, who are gathered together on April Fool's Day for a big soiree at the empty island house of one of their friends, Muffy, played by Deborah Foreman, who you might remember from Valley Girl or My Chauffeur or a bunch of other 80s stuff. And all these wacky characters of different personality types are gathered together, and practical jokes are ones that involve, a build-up on the teeth and gums. Practical jokes ensue, and eventually they turn deadly. And one by one, people start getting knocked off, and it's who will survive and what will be left of them, and all of that. Cast has some familiar faces in it. Tom Wilson, who was Biff in Back to the Future the year before, and then some other people whose names I don't recall at the moment, but were in several things in this era. Griffin O'Neill, Ryan O'Neill's son, who didn't do a whole lot of on-camera work, is in this film. And at the time it came out, I remember it being advertised as from the people who brought you Friday the 13th. Well, there's not a lot of people behind the scenes who are involved in Friday the 13th, other than maybe some of the higher-end production people, but it was Paramount, the same studio, and this was still when Friday the 13th movies were still coming out kind of on the regular. The biggest, strongest connection to Friday the 13th is Amy Steele, who is sort of the female protagonist in this film, and she was in Friday the 13th Part 2 a handful of years earlier. So, horror comedies, they're a delicate balance. Sometimes they're just mostly comedies with some horrific elements. Sometimes they're horror movies that have highlights and funny spots in them. I think American Werewolf in London is probably, for me, one of the best examples of a horror comedy where it is legitimately unsettling and creepy at times, and it's also legitimately funny at times. April Fool's Day kind of goes back and forth. Like I said, the original ad campaign really fouled this movie, really wronged this movie, because it makes it look like a flat-out comedy. And while there are a lot of laughs and the cast is very light and trying to be silly and wacky a lot of the time, when it gets to the killing portions of the film, it's serious business. And the film does steer toward being a serious horror film at that point. This is one that isn't terribly well remembered in the popular consciousness. This is one that sort of fell between the cracks as far as successive generations of film and horror fans picking up the torch for it goes. But people who saw it back when they were kids, people who like me who rented it for $1 from the local video store, tend to remember it pretty fondly. Some people don't like the film because of what the ending represents. With the ending of the film, there's a twist, and some people don't like it. They feel like it negates what came before. I never had a problem with it. I think it's just a fun movie. It's a slasher movie. It's an 80s movie. It's, I guess, rated R for tone, but the content isn't especially graphic in too many areas from what I recall. We just watched it the other night. The Shout Factory transfer looks great. Looks like a very nice rendition of a movie from 1986. It's got a decent amount of extras. It's got a 2-part interview with the writer-director, interview with one of the cast members and some of the special effects people. It's got the aforementioned TV spots and trailers. I'm always a little disappointed when I watch a Blu-ray in HD on a TV as big as I'm watching these on right now, and any of the additional content supplements are pulled from YouTube. Number one, it means, oh God, is that the only place this stuff exists anymore? To which I say, it can't be. And number two, it always feels like enough effort wasn't put in to actually find a good source for this material. But who knows? A lot of the times, preservation of TV spots comes down to somebody like me who happened to record a show 30 years ago and happened to not throw the tape away. So who knows? It was fun to see that stuff, especially in light of the movie we had just watched, to see how, to me, badly it was marketed, and no wonder it didn't do that well. So it's a nice release from Shout Factory. It's out now, and if you watch April Fool's Day and you like it or don't like it, let me know what you think. I like to know occasionally that anybody's watching.